Okay, welcome to the recap. So, I'm gonna go over the bias I had and the trade that I took. So, it was FOMC, so I didn't really want to trade the AM session, but I figured I'll just look at 10 a.m. and see how it looks. If it's clean, if it's obvious, then I'll take something. But right off the bat, I wasn't really convinced in longs off of this monthly gap because we did tap this, but we still left a lot of lows that I wanted to see get swept, like on the 4 hour. And then I just wanted to still see lower on ES because we had all these stacked lows here. We did have this little SMT, but I wasn't really convinced in this SMT with previous week low holding because of all this. Like these are pretty much relative equal lows with previous day low. And then we still had this daily candle from June that had no wick. And I still do want to see this monthly gap get hit on ES, which might be crazy to say, but that would be nice. I just didn't really, I wasn't convinced in longs, especially with yesterday. We did get a bit of this manipulation lower. I think here, yeah, or is it this? But we didn't really do much after that. Like to really be bullish, I would have wanted to see more of a reaction, like we were just chopping. So I was pretty much still bearish, and my draw was previous day low right here because he pretty much edged it, and then I wanted to see London low get swept as well because it didn't really trade into anything, and I figured we'd just sweep these lows. We also had SMT with previous day high here, and then ES did tap into this daily rejection block, which is out of this daily gap and this 4 hour gap right here. So my expectation was for this was also a 4 hour rejection block for this to just hold this 4 hour rejection block right here and then just trade lower off of that. And yeah, if you look at ES, this to me just looked like AMD here. Like all these lows, manipulation into the 4 hour gap here. We had the SMT, and then pretty much I just wanted to wait for 10 a.m. because I wasn't super sure right at open like what we were gonna do because we had this 1 hour gap and this just did not look clean. Like there's not really anything clean going on here. It's just a range. But I just waited for open and or waited for 10 a.m. but here's open. So yeah, pretty much we came down, swept out London low. Swept out this low here. So we did have an SMT here. Oh, right. So we did have this SMT, but my expectation was for 10 a.m. to just hopefully open higher and then get a continuation because we still had previous day low and I didn't think we were just going to leave previous day low. We still had it on ES as well. We still had all these lows, so I didn't see a reason that we would just reverse here. But here's 10 a.m. and we swept London low. Okay, so 10 a.m. pretty much opened higher, and I marked out this 5 minute gap. So we came up into this gap right here. And I also wanted to see the 5 minute range get rebalanced. So I drew it from here to here. So I wanted EQ and this 5 minute to get filled. and my draw was just previous day low. And also, it was the same thing on ES, but so we did have this SMT, but what I kind of, I guess, realized is pretty much ES should be the stronger asset. If you look at the daily, it's way stronger, and it's leaving all these lows, all these lows here. So pretty much if ES sweeps a low, but NQ doesn't, ES is weaker in this situation. And because of that, I didn't really care about this SMT because I expected NQ to just follow ES. Since like ES was showing weakness, I didn't think if NQ is going to be stronger here, I didn't think that this SMT was really going to hold, if that makes sense. But if it was the other way around where, say, NQ swept the low, but ES didn't, then I would be more concerned about that SMT. But I pretty much just faded that SMT. It was not even off of anything either. Like, we showed all these lows, so that's why I wasn't really worried. Because ES was weaker here, I just expected NQ to follow because NQ has been weaker as of lately. But basically, 10 a.m. opens higher, and it taps EQ right here. So we did get, or it taps, where is it? Here it is. So we get this 1 minute rejection block, but I want to wait for a 3 minute. And then we end up getting this 3 minute, but it doesn't really provide an entry. And I don't think the 1 minute gets tapped either. Yeah, so this would have been the entry. But I saw we had a 3 minute here. And then we also made a 5 minute. So what I wanted is this 5 minute. I put my limit here, but I pretty much knew that this wasn't going to get tapped. Because at this point, we already closed past 10 a.m. on the 5 minute. So there wasn't really an entry for that unless you just like market ordered this. And then what I saw is ES and NQ close past 10 a.m. So I viewed this as the manipulation higher into this 5 minute gap, and I just expected 10 a.m. to continue lower. And then I saw we closed past it, and I wanted to get an entry trigger off 10 a.m. here. But I didn't want to just limit 10 a.m. Like I figured 10 a.m. would hold. But the problem is like if you limit it here, I didn't really know where I'm going to put my stop because this is so discounted on the 1 minute range. Like I'd pretty much have to have my stop covering this 1 minute gap at least. I didn't really want to have my stop like only 10 points or 15 points just because we could still come up to this gap or even maybe this 5 minute, right? So I didn't want to limit that. I wanted an entry trigger off that, but there's no entry here. I would have taken this 1 minute, but yeah, we already take the low, so no entry there. And I just waited because at this point there was 2 entries, would have been this 5 minute or 10 a.m. that I didn't take. So basically two trades that I didn't get an entry on. And I just waited to see if we can get like a 5 minute gap open up because I was still bearish because, so let me get rid of this. I still want a previous day low. And I was pretty confident that 10 a.m. opened higher, that this was the manipulation, and that the 1 hour candle was just going to continue, or even the 4 hour candle. So I just want to look for a continuation, and eventually we did open up a 5 minute gap right here. We still had previous day low intact, so I wanted to get an entry out of this 5-minute gap and this range. I think I just used a 1-minute range because the 5-minute range was big. I think I just used this because I expected this big 1-minute gap to hold, and then this. And then there was an entry here. So there was a 3-minute. I limited this 3-minute also, but also don't get tagged in on this. So we'll just spin this. But no entry again. So third trade, no entry. And then we take previous day low. And then once we took previous day low, I was pretty much gonna hop off because there's nothing really else to target. But what happens is we make another 5-minute right here. And I put the fib on this leg. Right, but the reason that I was still wanting to look for shorts, even though we swept out everything, is because ES made these equal lows. So it actually edged this right here. It edged this daily candle that had no wick and made pretty much equal lows. So this was my draw still. I didn't think we're just going to leave that and just come higher from there. And it was still, what was it? It was like 10:30-ish. So if it was later, if it was maybe like 10:50, I would expect maybe this move to be over. But this 1 hour candle pretty much still had some room to go lower. I didn't expect like a big retracement yet. I still expected small retracements. And then what I wanted is an entry off of this 5-minute gap and just target this low. And ES, there wasn't a 5-minute gap on ES, but there was this 5-minute rejection block that I wanted to see hold. And there's like the 1-minute. So we had this 1-minute rejection block. I also still like wanted to wait for a 3-minute here. So we get this 3-minute was about to close. And I was pretty sure that this 5-minute was going to close bullish, but then the second candle would flip and sweep the low just based off of how this was looking. And I saw we tapped into the 1-minute that was holding, and I saw we were forming this 2-minute here. So I pretty much just market ordered here because we had this, and I was pretty sure that this is a really strong draw. These equal lows, so I was pretty sure if I actually wait for the 3-minute and limit this 3-minute, I'm just not going to get an entry. So I saw this gap, and then once this got inversed right here, I just market ordered this, and I was pretty sure this was not going to get tagged. So this was the trade that I actually took, market ordered here. I don't think I waited for this. I didn't wait for this candle to close. I pretty much was just pretty sure it was gonna inverse this, but my entry is around here. And this ended up being like a 1 to 2. My stop was like around here because I think I drew the fib like this and I just put it above OTE. There's so much drawings here. But I pretty much put my stop around here. It was a pretty big stop, but I just want to get the trade in because I was so sure about the draw. I was like, this was like the 5th entry of the day to the lows. So I just market ordered because I was really confident in the draw. I didn't really care about only getting a 1 to 2. So yeah, that was the trade and played out pretty quickly. And I also use like for the whole day, I use ES a lot as guidance. And I saw that it was just continuing lower. Like there was no really no sign of reversal here. There was no 5 minutes getting inversed. So yeah, we finally took the low that I wanted. And then I just closed once ES took this low. So yeah, that's the trade that I took. And from here, okay, good thing I closed because now we just chop. So now we finally swept the previous week low and all these lows on ES, which is really nice. So we could maybe move higher from here because there's FOMC, like see what FOMC does later today. But yeah, I don't know. I still want lower. I still want ES to just sweep this low. But we'll see what we do because we're down a lot on ES. But yeah, that's the trade, and I'll see you guys in the next one.